the men who hold high places must be the ones who start.
So, what's the prognosis, guys? Where are we going to end up?
Prognosis negative, but that's always...
Yes, David Reed. We're all going to die.
Exactly.
Eeyore says we're all going to die. I say we're going to fight back and win, because here's the deal. We just gained about 2 decades with the next Supreme Court justice who gets confirmed. All right, if Hillary had won and replaced Scalia and added, Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder as justices.
Ocasio-Cortez, maybe.
Yeah, there you go, because she's real bright. That's a dim bulb right there. But the bottom line is we've got a little bit of running room in front of us because they can't edit the Constitution like they were planning.
Right.
So we still have the First and Second Amendments.
Let me raise something here that I really want to hear what you guys think, because I'm hearing seriously respected individuals. I mean, even Victor Davis Hanson. You're asking them, and they're using phrases like civil war.
Yeah.
Is this just? I mean, you don't want to paint the devil on the wall.
Here's what I'll say. We talked a little bit before about the Charlottesville stuff, and one of the things that struck me that I thought was most upsetting about Charlottesville was after Civil War. I mean, it's very rare. As you guys know, I've spent time in Lebanon, and I've written about Lebanon, and that's a country that came out of a civil war.
Right.
It's very rare when a country after Civil War manages to agree to live together with one another. Mm-hmm. So some of the different things that people wanted to destroy, that people wanted to tear down, not just statues, they were tearing at the fabric of an American peace, a peace that goes back to the end of the Civil War. So I don't know what the future looks like. All I'm saying is what happened was this is the peace by which we Americans agreed to live together after an incredibly destructive episode, the most destructive episode in our lives. And so it's been building on that. This is what things like the Civil Rights Movement has been, the more positive aspects of feminism, all these different things to try to strengthen America. But our fabric is basically built on the end of the Civil War. We will live together now.
But who was that? That was 2 different people. We have a different fight now.
Civil wars, I mean, whether it's Boston, whether it's Lebanon, or whether it's our own Civil War, they can't just be based on perceptions. There has to be history, there has to be culture, there has to be ethnic identity, there has to be big issues like slavery.
Right.
What is the objective issue for these nutcases in Antifa? I mean, the idea that the president really is a fascist dictator, well, then you'd all be in prison, buttercups, right? So isn't there this safety valve for us that in this case, it's just dementia, it's a psychotic issue for these people. Can you really create a Civil War kind of situation when there's no objective background to their grievance?
Well, you can create maybe not a real Civil War situation with the, capital C, capital W, but certainly, I mean, I've felt that, and I know I'm not alone, I felt that we've been going in a really horrible direction for some time, because basically we have 2 views of the nature of the good. We have 2 views of the relative justice or injustice of the American project. That's what it is. How long can you go in a society where elite media, elite education, and elite cultural voices all say in unison that the founding of the country was unjust? In a situation, I was just thinking the other day, in a situation where people are saying that color blindness and not thinking about race is white supremacy, where do you go from there? What's the next step?
But it doesn't change the key issue that side's argument is based wholly on a fallacy. I mean, if any of what they said was true,
but they believe it.
Then Colin Kaepernick would not be Colin Kaepernick. Then a guy who was born to an unwedded single mother in Hawaii would never get to be the president of the United States. So does that mean we have a built-in safety there?
But now, think about it, though. Think about the major movements that have created danger and destruction in the world. Almost all of them were deluded at their core. So if you look at the delusions of the left,
they're based on root grievances. So the Weimar Republic, I mean, you did need a wheelbarrow of cash to buy an egg, right? So there's an issue. What comes in? The ideology comes in like a lens, and Hitler says, "Oh, it's the Jews." So he perverts reality.
Right.
Whether it's fascist, whether it's communist, there has to be that root grievance
but how
that
long,
is re-explained.
So
how long did it take?
We'll find out once the economy tanks.
As who said that? That guy, Bill Maher.
Yeah, we need
got
to
to
see
have
that.
it
Yeah.
as he's riding around in his limo, sipping,
Right.
Dom Perignon.
But they've had decades to train generations now in academia through, so now all of our elite have been through liberal education that has taught them fundamentally wrong things. So it doesn't matter whether it's true, they believe it. Perception's reality.
I really want to hear from you, but on that, I recommend all of you guys out there, because this is good news, go and watch Austin Fletcher's videos on YouTube. A guy called Fleccas, Fleccas, Fleccas. He looks like a stoner, he looks like a prog. He goes to these Antifa marches with a camera and a microphone, shoves it in the faces of the protesters, and he just asks 2 or 3 questions. By question 3, they're gone. They have no argument. So tell me about the fascism of Donald Trump.
Right.
And he breaks down. So the good news, Jim, is they've been brainwashed for 40 years. But the brainwashing is about this deep. So
Because there's no fact to it. You're right. There's no fact.
Sure.
Right.
What I was going to say, that I think that you can go along a long way and find a grievance along the way. I think that one of the things that we're seeing now, part of it's ideology, definitely, but also part of it's just a struggle for power, right? When you look at, something struck me this week, there was one of the grossest things I saw this week, a very impressive professor at Harvard, a man named Danny Roderick, whom I interviewed on the phone several years ago for a piece of Tablet. And he wrote an article saying how former Trump administration should effectively be ostracized. They should not be given certain awards or certain honors at different universities, and we even have to be careful about inviting them to speak to different places. And this is, unfortunately, this man's father-in-law was rolled up in one of these insane conspiracy investigations in Turkey, in the Ergenekon cases. And this is when Erdogan and Gulen were on the same side.
Right.
And what struck me about that is that this is a gentleman who has internalized these kinds of policies and is now pushing them. But the fact is, there are other Americans who agree with this.
Sure.
Talking about ostracizing Trump, and look at how many times we see this in the paper. Pompeo and Bolton should resign. These people are doing a great deal of harm to their own reputation, and we're going to hurt them and make them pay for it. I see that as a struggle for, sorry for meandering, but it's an enormous struggle for power. And our politics are supposed to reach some sort of consensus or some sort of stability with power, but people are pushing it very, very hard to go in the other direction. Right. And so, again, just to come back to your asking about real conflict, they take a while, but it can happen.
And then you have Tom Friedman write what? He says, focus on the garbage noise around the president so that nobody looks at his successes. I mean, think about that. That's an op-ed
Right.
in the paper of record, which is saying,
Right.
I want you all in the media. He said,
right.
I want you to
I didn't see
focus
that.
on
Yeah,
the
that's-
narrative,
right.
on the lies, because otherwise the success is going to be too successful.
Right.
Well, that may be a good strategy for us, because I would rather have the media talking about, tweets and nonsense.
Yeah, well, people's
and
lives
then
are
have,
getting better,
Well,
and this
right,
and
right.
that.
I mean, somebody said like,
You're not
"Hey,
saying the president does that, do you, with his tweets?
Oh,
I'm
he's
not-
the
I'm
king
not-
of
I'm
straight
not-
Bolton.
There's a phrase it's called Jim crack, right? The shiny object over there. Let them look at that.
Right.
So, but this was not a strategy in the White House.
Yeah,
No,
certainly
not.
not.
At all.
Right, right. Certainly not. Somebody says, a friend of mine says, "Hey, no, it was my dad." He's like, "Hey, didn't Linda McMahon go to work in the cabinet?" And I was like, "Yeah, she did." And he says, "She must be kicking ass then."
Do you think that people are getting, I'm curious to know from all you guys with this, do you think that people, not the press, but do you think that people generally are getting more accustomed to the president's style?
Yes.
His management style, his...
It's not getting used to it. Let me tell you a story.
Okay.
So I flew with the president a year ago, maybe June, to Youngstown, Ohio. It was for a rally. You got to think about it. Youngstown, Ohio is Steel Valley. It is hardcore Democrat. And we got off Air Force One, had about a 25-minute drive to the stadium, and we're driving past what? Closed down mill after closed. I mean, it's just closed down steel mill after closed down steel mill. Other side of the road is lined with people waving American flags, MAGA hats. We get to the arena, 25, 30,000 people in the arena. And the boss is in the back meeting and greeting. And we're talking to these people, and you meet them, salt of the earth, manual laborers. You know that they were Democrats. You know their grandparents were registered Democrats. When this billionaire comes out on the stage with Melania Trump, the whole building, it was like an earthquake. He wasn't allowed to speak for 5 minutes because they were shouting, drain the swamp, USA. Now, think about that for a second. This guy's a billionaire TV star.
Right.
From
Manhattan.
From Manhattan.
Right.
And the manual laborers
Queens,
of
from Queens.
Queens.
That's right, yeah.
Queens.
Same thing.
No,
It's not the same thing.
for the New Yorkers, it's not the same.
Save that for later. And the steel workers of Steel Valley are screaming for him. Right? Why? I'll tell you why. Because they look at him and they say, okay, he's the president, most powerful man in the world. Yeah, he's a billionaire. But if I was him, I'd also be eating Big Macs on Air Force One, right? It's that connection. So they're not learning his style; it's their style.
Right.
But they've never seen a politician like him because what have we had? Swamp dwellers. We've had left and right swamp dwellers with little sounding boards and their advisors and their consultants for 30 years.
That's what. There was about a week ago. When was it? How long ago? When he got up on stage. That's what I mean. Just his routine seems to be getting even better, more closely crafted. He says, and they want me to act presidential, and he pretends walking around like a robot. Just, thank you,
Right.
Mr. Winston. Like,
Right.
that's really good.
Yeah.
That is
And he's
really
also-
good.
He's not ashamed to be a rich guy. All right, everybody in America wants to be rich.
Yeah,
Mitt
exactly,
Romney,
right.
if Mitt Romney had stood up and said, you know what, I inherited $100 million, and you know what I did? I gave it to charity.
Right.
And then you know what I did? I made another $100 million. Vote for me and you could do that too. Trump's like, you want to be like me? I'm rich. I got a beautiful wife. I love America. People can do it.
Do you remember until Trump, for the last 5-6 years, you could not get politicians to go to whitetail events. They would not even go to black tie events, right? Because the photo is going to be what?
Right,
Oh, Daddy
right.
Warbucks.
In a top.
That's
right,
politician
that's right.
in bed with the industrialists.
Right.
Along comes this guy. I don't care. Give me white tie. Give me tails. We're back, America.
Because it
right?
is great. Everyone wakes up in the morning here. This, I'm going to be the next guy to hit the lottery. I mean, you go around the rest of the
Yes.
world, and everyone is resentful. We all hear this whenever we travel, family from other countries and stuff. There's like everyone's resentful. Here, everyone's like, I'm the next one to hit it rich.
Right.
All right, now you brought up something that talking about the steel mills, the walk away movement right now. Was it organic? Who cares? But it's real. All right. My dad actually did a shot on Fox News because his father was the Democrat state national chairman of the state of Nebraska when Kennedy was running.
Wow.
Drove John Kennedy and Jackie around the state of Nebraska for a week in his car. All right. My dad was a Republican chairman in Wisconsin. All right, he walked away that many years ago, and it's still happening because of what you said. Because people in the steel mills, people in those countries, they relate to Trump, not the Democrats. The Democrats left them. Right. The Democrats went left. Right. They left, sanity. All right, so right now you've got these crazy people over here saying, well, no, socialism will work if we just do it right this time. Right? They're literally trotting that out again, and people are going, no. No, we know that's garbage. And these guys over here are saying, maybe we can't bring every refugee on earth here. Maybe we should have borders. Maybe we shouldn't spend all our money on things that we can't, actually use for normal people. And maybe jobs matter. And Trump's like, yeah.
Could it be simpler than that? Because you're talking about big things like socialism, economy, jobs. I go back to something Monica Crowley said the weekend after the election. We were at David Horowitz's Restoration Weekend, and it was either going to be a wake or a party. It wasn't a party. And she said everybody got him wrong because they tried to peg him ideologically. And you cannot put a pin in this man ideologically. I mean, this is a guy, remember, at one of his campaign events, he strode around the stage waving a gay pride flag as the Republican candidate. It just doesn't fit into any box. Okay? He's not an ideological candidate. He's not an ideological man.
Right.
He was an attitudinal one.
Yeah.
And America is an attitude. People talk about, it's a religion. No, I think it's also an attitude. And the attitude is success and being unapologetic. And that's visceral for a voter. You don't have to know about ideologies, the difference between Sunni and Shia, what a GDP measurement is. But attitude, you feel that the second a guy comes on stage. Right?
That's funny. A guy we know, Tony Bedron, who lives in Queens, our buddy in Queens, he said, one of the things I really love about the guy is he's got that attitude. Reminds me of like that can-do 1980s attitude. You see it in all the movies.
Sure.
It's like, you say what you go ahead, You push your case, you make your case. Yeah, it's about attitude. So
Right.
very interesting.
And that connects.
Yeah.
No doubt. So let's do the election. All right. We're heading into a pretty important election. They're all important. You can say that every time. But this one, is the election about Trump and about the attitude, or is the election about the left and their obsession with bringing him down? I mean, what is the theme?
I think after 8 years of Obama, it's course correction. And I truly believe, everybody uses these kind of phrases. General Flynn said the November 16 election was a peaceful political revolution. I agree. I tend to think this November is even more important than that election. Why? Because what have we seen in a year and a half? It's absolutely staggering. From ISIS to illegal migration, to the economy, to investments, to NATO, to China, to North Korea. It's staggering. But it needs to be what? It needs to be 8 years of that. And that's what November is about. And we have to remember the starting point. Where did we get to after 8 years of Obama? We got to an administration that facilitated the biggest state sponsor of terrorism. I mean, there's a guy sitting in a Supermax prison who was a DC Metro cop who thought he was wiring $500 to ISIS. He was booked and charged and convicted of material support to terrorism for $500. The Obama administration gave $140 billion. Okay, that's what we have to course correct. We had an administration that wanted to say your teenage son can go into a girls' teenage restroom if he says I'm Julie today. That takes a lot of course correction. So I think November is massive. I don't believe in the blue wave. Oh, and by the way, everybody, if there's any party that's red, it's the Democrats. So let's switch that back.
I hated that forever. That's been one of the biggest mistakes ever, because the U.S. was always blue in every war game we ever fought. All right, but now let's talk then. Let's bring the media back into this, because regardless of what it should be, you're right about everything you just said. Those are the things that need to happen. We're not talking about them. Like you said, we're talking about stray voltage. We're talking about things. We're talking about smear campaigns. Yeah, we're talking about garbage. And incidentally, I had ostrich cowboy boots. So if there's a knock on the door, it might be the U.S. Marshals. All right, not wearing them now.
I wish you were wearing them.
But is the media going to let the American people hear about anything other than Trump Russia or the garbage that they're putting up? Or, is there a chance that those issues are going to break through, or do the people already know?
I think people are sick of it.
Yeah, aren't there indications that even some of the Democrats are saying, "Are you kidding me? We're supposed to run against Vladimir Putin in November."
Right.
I mean, that's what's going on in some places.
There was a minute there a couple months ago when I guess before the Russia trip, right? Before the Russia trip, this stuff was pretty, or the Helsinki trip, the Russia meeting.
The Russia trip, no one's supposed to talk about.
Yeah, right.
That's hush hush.
Yeah. So polling came out that suggested that the Democrats were actually losing on the Russia issue. And
Well,
yet,
there was a polling that said, what is the most important issue to you as an American voter? And Russia could not be numerically represented
correct.
because it's been below one.
Right. Exactly. And yet, I mean, this is why I think these people are all crazy, which is that they're watching each other.
Yeah.
They're on Twitter. They're following each other. They're creating this thing. It all seems to make sense if you're, up to the minute on Manafort, and any day, any hour, the bottom's going to drop out, and then Mueller is going to ascend to the heavens or something. But and then we'll be free of Trump, just like Deus Ex Machina. But yeah, I think normal people are looking at this and they're saying,
Right.
I can't take it anymore.
So it's curious then. So what are they running against? What are they? I mean,
that's just it. They don't have a platform right now, other than, the only one that's being talked about is free everything.
Right.
They're literally going with the Democrat platform of free ice cream, and the Republicans still selling broccoli. All right, which has been the problem all along.
Very disturbing things such as abolish ICE.
Yeah. Which is good,
Really?
and thank you. Okay, and that's, they are their own worst enemies. I thank God for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is a gift that keeps on giving. Bernie Sanders is a gift that keeps on giving. And it scares me that they'll run someone sane in 2020. But whatever happens in this election, Trump still got 2 more years of an economy that's growing and the accomplishments that you were talking about, Seb, that they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the successes. If you just, at the end of the year, Rich Lowry from National Review, all right, which was a definitely anti-Trump publication, wrote a piece talking about if this was any other Republican, we would be cheering him for his accomplishments in 2017. We're going to get to the end of 2018, 2019, and the same things are going to have been happening. You know, things are going to be getting better. Things are going to be getting done. We're going to be going ahead and telling people, and Trump's going to get to run on that. And I think that's the difference. He's got accomplishments.
To what extent is a lot of that noise or the incoherence of the Democratic candidates, is that a function of the fact that the actual leader of the party is no longer eligible to be president of the United States, right? The way I see it, Barack Obama is still the leader of that party. I mean, he's running the Democratic Party from Colorado, a couple miles away here. So who else is putting out ideas? What are the ideas? What's going on?
I think you've hit on something. There's a structural issue as well. The left has always had its crazies. Okay, I mean, let's go back to '68, the Days of Rage, Chicago, SDS. This isn't a new thing. But whenever they arose, there'd always be the pragmatists. I am not a fan of Bill Clinton, but Bill Clinton was a pragmatist. And he'd rein in the crazies, or he'd be in a position of power to be able to do so.
Right.
I ask you, who is the pragmatist in the DNC leadership who wants to, I mean, when Maxine Waters is out there saying, you know, harass people at petrol pumps if they work for Trump, there is no pragmatist in the DNC.
So I think not going to answer your question because I don't think there's an answer. I'm sorry, but it just occurred to me. It occurred to me after January, after the inauguration, that there's basically there's two modes for the media and the Democrats, and you know, I mean, it's the same thing. Which is when Trump is doing well, he's a fascist. When Trump is doing poorly, he's a puppet of Russia
or an incompetent. Right? Either he's a genius fascist or an incompetent. These are the two realities.
Right, exactly. So I said, well, we want the media to be screaming that he's a fascist because then we'll get the winning, and I don't even think I mean it's just not convincing to normal people that he's a fascist.
And they like the things he's doing that the left calls fascism. All right, if you look at the polling on things like immigration and like the border wall and these kind of things, and abolish ICE, the American public's saying, hell yeah, that's what we want. You know, we're looking for those things. And then the Democrats are like, this is the end of the world. Well, please continue to focus on the end of the world because the rest of America thinks that's a great idea.
So that's a really fascinating point, that the things that the media accuses Trump of being a fascist on are things that are supremely popular with the electorate, specifically immigration and terrorism and the things that, you know, really, really trigger the hell out of the media.
I think this has been the whole thing all along, and one of the reasons I think that the media is getting a hard time, media on the left and some media on the right as well, getting a hard time, not because they're criticizing Trump. First of all, they're not criticizing and going over the top, but it's not just because they're criticizing Trump. The problem is that they have attacked Trump supporters, right? That's the things like, you're the morons. You love fascism. You love all these different things. And I think that people are just sick and tired. I mean, people are disgusted.
We're getting that. We're getting the same thing from the Never Trump right, and then the Never Trump quote unquote right, and then they say, why are these people so angry at us? We just call them racists all day long and fascists supporting, you know, Neanderthals.
Right. Rude,
why do they hate us?
You know, I think the height of the hypocrisy was just this week when Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk are eating breakfast, and then you've got a bunch of white, liberal Democrat, progressive, Antifa resistance losers yelling at a black woman, one of them holding a bullhorn, yelling in her ear about white supremacism, while black and Hispanic police officers try to stop the deranged white leftists from attacking the black woman. I'm sorry, I'd be hard pressed to even write that into a political ad because it's too absurd.
It's too obvious.
It's a good note to end on, because you've summarized politics in 2018, right?
And there we are. That's what we're looking at, and thank you, Resistance, for bringing that level of insanity to the Democrat platform. I'd like to thank Sebastian Gorka, David Reboy, partner in crime, Lee Smith. This was the Friday Free Speech Podcast. We'll be back, because we ain't done yet.
Mold a new reality, closer to the heart, closer to the heart.